Hope everybody's doing great out there on the internet. Jim Munchback here, about to start a new episode of personal finance at the University of Houston, Bauer College of Business. So I'm about to kick off the Zoom meeting, just getting everything warmed up and ready to go. We're going to talk about first memories of money. Take a look at the course content that the students will be working on this week. So if you're a student at the University of Houston taking personal finance in the fall of 2022, this is for you. And if you're not a student at the University of Houston and you want to learn about personal finance and how we construct a holistic, comprehensive financial plan, then you're welcome to join us. But I'm assuming most of the folks who are tuning in today are students actually enrolled at the University of Houston in our personal finance course. You can learn more about the course at moneystudygroup.com or missionalmoney.com, where we do a podcast. I'm going to try to take this episode, this lecture, this today's lesson and turn it into a podcast. That's easier said than done, but I'm going to work on that today. I think I have a lot of work to do today. It is 9:59, which means it's time to turn on the Zoom meeting. So I'm going to jump over to the Zoom meeting and admit everyone who's waiting and do a sound check. Hey, Karen. Hey, Tika. Esmeralda. Hello, David. Everyone, hello and welcome to Personal Finance. We are kicking off the Zoom meeting. If you could, please give me a sound check. Somebody just tell me you can hear me. I'm assuming you can. Everything on my end looks like it's working. But if you could just let me... Thank you, Karen. You sound very quiet. I think it's because I have my volume turned way down. I'm going to turn it up so that in case anyone in this Zoom meeting wants to raise your hand, ask a question, speak up, unmute yourself, you're welcome to do that at any point in this Zoom meeting. So this is for you. This Zoom meeting is for you. It's 10 a.m., so we're about to get started. And as usual, I am going to ramble a bit and hope, or at least pay attention to the chat to see if anyone has any questions. If you do have a question, now is a good time to ask your question. Otherwise, if you will just give your name, the time that you joined the meeting, that's great. I'm going to continue to admit students until 10:05 a.m. And in the meantime, I'm looking for your questions and paying attention to my screen because I have to click every time someone joins. I probably could automate that, but there are certain security measures we have to take so that we don't get, what do they call it, Zoom bombed? So we've taken those measures as appropriately necessary. If you're joining us on YouTube or Facebook, welcome again. And if you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube later, at another time besides today, which is, what is today? Today is September 13th, year of our Lord, 2022, and we're jumping into week number 4 of personal finance. We're going to talk about first memories of money. I'm going to unpack your assignment this week, which is to think about your first memories of money. We'll talk about that. And also you'll do a parental interview, one of the most important and meaningful assignments you'll have this semester, and one of my favorites to grade. So again, it's now 10:02 a.m. and I am still rambling. I'm going to talk a minute while we're waiting for 10:05, the magic time where we stop admitting students. I'm going to talk a little bit about, I jumped into GroupMe this week, which I try not to do unless it's necessary. I feel like that's kind of your space, and I only want to invade your space if necessary. And sometimes I want to just go and see if they're, well, If there are questions that are not getting answered, I'm assuming that you will reach out to me via email. And you guys have done a great job doing that. Whenever there's an issue, a question that isn't being answered in GroupMe, you guys are always welcome to shoot me a text message or an email, and I will jump in and get that answered. And then I generally go into GroupMe to answer the question, just to efficiently move things forward. So GroupMe is a great way for you to go and get questions answered that you don't want to ask me, and I appreciate that. There are a lot of questions that, frankly, if you're in this meeting, you're getting those questions answered. What I'm finding is there are most of you are A students. A meaning you're going to earn an A in this course and every other course you take because you put in the work, you do the work. And then there are several other students who are more like me. When I went to college, I was not an A student. I paid for my own college, and I earned a 2.83. My GPA after college was 2.83, I think, which is like a solid C plus maybe. But at any rate, I worked full time. I paid for my own college. I wanted to learn what I needed to learn to do what I wanted to do. But my college education was not the most important, what the grades that I earned in college was not the most important thing to me. What was most important to me, I got married in college. I had my first child in college. I worked full time. And what was most important to me was providing for my family and for myself. And so college kind of, it didn't come second. It was up there. 2.82 or 3 or whatever was, for me, a pretty good achievement. I was happy with it. I've never regretted it. But that's me. And I know some of you are kind of in that situation where you're working, you have other priorities, and you want to do well in school, but earning an A isn't your number one priority. And you're okay if you get a B. And that's great. You probably, I relate to you very well. But for the A students, those of you who are willing to do the work to earn an A in every course, this course is set up for you to do that. And one of the things we do is we have early submissions by Friday at 3 p.m. Most of you are taking advantage of that. I applaud you for that. That's for you to earn an A. When I started teaching this course over 10 years ago, I discovered pretty quickly the difference between the A students and the rest of us. And so I decided I wanted to make this course, Personal Finance, kind of replicate how life works. And I know how life works. I know how money works. I know how success works. And if you get there first and bring superior force to bear, you will win the battle. And it's true in personal finance. And so everything I do in this course in terms of giving you an unreasonable advantage if you want to be an A student, giving you an unreasonable advantage if you want to win in financial planning and financial success. I want to give you an unreasonable advantage, and I know how to do that. So I read a comment in GroupMe I want to just mention that, and I'm not criticizing. I'm not even sure if I'm right about what I'm about to say. Time will tell. But the comment from a student was to another student about these Zoom meetings. And it basically said, you don't have to watch the Zoom meetings. He can't make you watch the Zoom meetings. And so that's true. That's absolutely true. You don't have to do your homework. You don't have to turn your assignments in by Friday at 3 p.m. It's up to you. It's a choice you have. You don't have to be in these meetings. You certainly don't have to watch these Zoom meetings as they get posted on YouTube and Facebook. You don't have to do that. And the student is right. I can't make you do that. But here's the thing. In life, in real life, there are lots of ways that those of us who have certain authorities, certain, resources, whether it's in the realm of managing money or managing a course at the University of Houston, there are certain things we can do to manipulate you. And I just want to say that I am not above manipulating you, okay? I will manipulate you to the best of my ability so that I can give you that unreasonable advantage in life. I'm willing to do that. And for those of you who want to resist that and want to be like I was in college and do the least amount of work possible and spend the least amount of time possible in terms of learning the content in personal finance, you're welcome to do that. I'm rooting for you to succeed. Nonetheless, I will do everything in my power to manipulate you to achieve the next level of success in your life, which I know and you know that financial planning, managing your personal finances, is an important part of life. And so there we go. It's now 10:08. I rambled 3 minutes longer than I meant to. And I hope I answered that question for myself. When we did the expectations conversation, many of you told me that I have the right to expect that you do watch these Zoom meetings and that you do participate in the course in this way. And these lectures, they're my time to share what's on my heart to you. And I do my best to try to share what I think can help you. And so not only in the course, if we jump over to what's in your course this week, I created that content for you. It's the stuff that's been on my heart for a long time that I believe can help you achieve an unreasonable advantage in your life because you're going to learn how to manage money in a way that not everybody has an opportunity to do. Not everybody has the opportunity to learn how to manage money in a way that can really make a difference in your life. And that's what this course is about. And that certainly is what today's lesson is about. So thank you for those of you who are here in the Zoom meeting. Thank you for being here, for making the time and making it a priority. And for those of you who watch later, I'm thrilled that we get to make this course available in an asynchronous way so that you can participate whenever it's convenient for you. And I'm grateful for that. I'm thankful for this technology that's kind of new to me, relatively speaking, but this is for you. If you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, welcome. Thank you. Let's get started. First, memories of money. So this week's assignment is going to include two major pieces, part one and part two. The first part is your first memory of money. And so I've posted this on Missional Money, missionalmoney.com. If you go there, you'll find this post, and this post is called First Memories of Money. And so as I scroll down, you'll see an old traditional picture that I don't know, it's a stock image, but it's a little girl and mom and grandma. And so that's kind of the traditional family that I grew up in, and food was a big part of that. So the little girl's learning how to make chocolate chip cookies with mom, who learned how to do that from grandma, and blah, blah, blah. So I hope that's a fun picture to look at. Anyway, that's what I want to talk about for a minute. First memories of money, and I hope I'm not making you dizzy. I'm not going to play this video, but this video is one I hope you'll watch. It's part of the post, and I think it's in your playlist, and I know that it's in Money Study Group. But this video about first memories, it starts out with a story about my Uncle Hank. And I want to just kind of frame out that story for you. This is kind of the backstory that you won't get if you're not here in this meeting. But my Uncle Hank is a real guy. He passed 3 years ago. In fact, my Uncle Hank and my Aunt Doris and my father all passed within a couple of weeks of one another. So that year was a very challenging year. And Uncle Hank was the guy in the family. I think every family has one of these people that we look up to. People like when my wife and I first met, when I got married, I took my wife to meet my entire family. I grew up in Lansing, Michigan, but my mom was from Bowling Green, Kentucky. So all of her family lived in Kentucky. And so you may recall a few weeks ago in the summer, we took a vacation at the lake house in Bowling Green, Kentucky. Well, Uncle Hank, the subject of this story, First Memories of Money, real guy. He was the guy when I took my wife to meet our family, after she met Uncle Hank. From then on, every time we faced a challenging question, especially in the area of financial, any financial decision that we had to make, or big decisions that involved doing the right thing, those kind of things. Sorry, I'm getting hit with students wanting to join late, and I'm not letting them in, and I have to react to those. So every time we had to face in our marriage or our family one of those big decisions, my wife would always ask the question, what would Uncle Hank do? He was that guy. He was the guy in our family who, we all looked up to. He was like the hero. He was the man. He was the guy we would go to for counsel, especially when it came to financial stuff. So Uncle Hank became one of my clients. It was one of the most meaningful engagements of my professional life is when I became a financial planner. When I began managing money as an investment advisor, I went to Uncle Hank and I told him that I would work really hard to provide a better result for him than he was getting at his current provider. And I was confident I could do that. But I also knew I had to start somewhere. So I went to Uncle Hank, and he was generous and kind enough to become one of my first clients. And he passed, and his wife is still a client. And it's one of the most meaningful experiences of my professional life, to be able to have the confidence to provide to know and to be trusted. That's really what it was. He trusted me, and I considered that a sacred trust. And anyway, in this story, I talk about Uncle Hank and his first memories of money. And that's your assignment, is to think about your first memories of money. Uncle Hank, in this video and in my book, Make Your Money Count, where I tell Hank's story, instead of using the actual facts, Uncle Hank grew up on a pig farm. His whole family farmed pigs. For some reason, my editor suggested we use cows, and I said, okay. I don't know why. I wish I wouldn't have done that now. But anyway, in the story, we talk about cows. But the reality, the truth is, it was pigs. So maybe it's a minor detail, but it's the truth. He was a pig farmer. And when he came home one day, Uncle Hank, he was a little kid, and his dad was sitting at the kitchen table, and he was crying because all of the pigs that they had raised for the entire year, every year they would sell them to a broker, a stockbroker, not a stockbroker, farm stock, and a pig broker, animal broker. I say stockbroker because they call it stock on a farm. So the guy that they sold it to was someone who went out and purchased their inventory of animals and took them to market. And I think they typically would auction them off. But the transaction happened between the farmer and this broker, this person who came out and basically provided a check and took the animals. And what happened was, this guy who bought the pigs didn't pay, and then he absconded. He disappeared. And so their entire income for the whole year was gone. And Hank came home, and his father was sitting at the kitchen table crying. Hank said he'd never seen his father cry. And it was one of those things that impacted him. It changed him. It shifted his paradigm about money. And that's what I've come to see and believe and understand about people as I do financial planning and investment management. And I try to ask this question to everyone that I work with, so that I know kind of what makes up their way of thinking about money and about risk and so on. But for Uncle Hank, it was a very clear memory. And it was one of the most profound memories I've heard. And because of who he was, it was that much more meaningful to me to ask him that question and to understand Uncle Hank. And so, especially as his financial advisor managing his investments, it was incredibly important to me to understand how he felt, how he thought about money and risk. And so it really helped me be a more effective advisor, a more effective financial planner, a more effective investment manager for Uncle Hank. Um, because what happened to him during that experience, think about that for a minute for Uncle Hank. What do you think happened? Just think about that for a minute. What do you think happens to a human being who goes through an experience like that early on in life, where they have this epiphany, this awakening, this paradigm shift, where they see how important money is to their family, to the people they love, as they have an experience that opens their eyes as a young person, very young. How do you think that impacts them? How do you think that might have impacted my Uncle Hank? How do you think that might have impacted you if you had that experience in your family? Think about that. Leave a comment, post a comment in the chat. If you're watching on YouTube or Facebook and you're watching this at 2 a.m. on Sunday, go ahead and leave a comment. Post your comment. What do you think would happen when you experience a financial trauma like what happened in Hank's family? What do you think that might do to the way you think about money, the way you feel about money, and how you behave in the context of managing money? That's the whole reason that this assignment is here this week, because I want you to think about your first memories of money. I want you to take a trip back to in your memory to that very first time that you can remember experiencing money. Maybe it was the tooth fairy. Maybe it was birthday money. Maybe it was your first job, your first paycheck that you ever earned, and you finally got the check and you saw they took taxes out. Whatever your first memory of money is, that's what I want you to share with me. And well, in your assignment, I want you to share that. And I really look forward to reading those first memories of money. But that's your assignment. That's part one. Because it's turned out to be one of the most important questions I ever ask people, is to tell me about your first memories of money. And it really sometimes opens up psychological, emotional barriers. It just makes people go back to when they were young. Now, you're younger than I am. I'm 60 years old. So if I ask someone my age to go way back to when they were a child, like Uncle Hank did, somehow, when you're as old as I am, those questions hit a different spot in your heart. Because it involves family and experiences way back. But for you, you're so young. Maybe it's not as meaningful. Maybe it's not as impactful for you as it is for an older person. And that's why we have part two of this week's assignment, where you're going to interview someone in your family. You're going to ask them the questions, and I'm going to give you the questions in the assignment. But it's one of the questions you're going to ask is about their first memories of money. And you're going to set the table the same way that I'm trying to set the table for you, by saying, tell me, what are your first memories about money? Like, maybe when the first thing that comes to mind when you think about money and you were a young child, maybe it was the tooth fairy. Maybe it was money you got from someone who loved you on your birthday. Maybe it was your first paycheck, or the first time you actually worked and were paid money. Maybe that was it. But what is your first memory of money? That's the question I want you to ask the person that you select in your family. And I want you to think about who you're going to interview, because I ask this question to everyone, but when I went to someone in my family, I was very intentional about going to my Uncle Hank. I haven't asked this question to everyone in my family, but I have it to all the people I love, because it's more about them. And when I asked Uncle Hank and he shared that story, it was profound. It was profound for him and for me. And what happened in the course of that conversation, and I'm looking at some of your comments or about how you think that might impact someone to go through that kind of financial trauma. And what happened with Hank in the course of our conversation, and this is really my purpose for asking this question, is I wanted to understand Uncle Hank. I wanted to understand his experience, how he thought, how he felt, how he behaved in the context of managing his wealth, his money. I wanted to understand that. And what I discovered and what Hank discovered in that conversation is this. And this was very enlightening for me and for Hank. And this may be part of what happens with you when you do this interview with someone that you select, that you admire, that you look up to, and you want to know, how do you think about money? How do you manage money? That's the purpose of the parental interview, is for you to gain wisdom and knowledge from someone you respect in your family who you think did a really good job in their life at managing money. That's the purpose of this week's assignment, both parts. But this interview is a very special assignment. It can be a very meaningful experience for you and the person that you interview. And so I want you to take it seriously. I want you to approach it with a certain level of, like I said, with Hank, it was a sacred trust. And that's how I want you to approach this with the person you choose to interview. It's like showing them respect, and also respecting the fact that the questions you ask may be emotional. They may be awkward. They may be challenging. There may be some shame involved because maybe they did things that they regret. And they're willing to share that with you to help you. That's what I want you to recognize about this assignment. And I want you to be very careful and thoughtful about who you choose to interview. Here's what I learned from Hank, and here's what Hank learned about Hank in the context of this conversation. And let me just set the table. When I had this conversation with Hank, we went for a walk. He lived in Bowling Green, Kentucky, and we went for a long walk out in the country. It was a beautiful, beautiful autumn day. The sun was shining, the sky was blue, it was cool, crisp, and so we went for a long walk, and it was a beautiful memory to have with my Uncle Hank, a guy that I grew up just adoring. And my wife adored him, and we all adored him, and we miss him. But when I went for that walk with Hank, we had this conversation, and he shared his first memories of money, and he shared how that impacted him. And then I asked him the next question, which is the same question I asked you. What do you think happens to a person who experiences that kind of financial trauma? I asked Hank, how do you think that shaped how you think about money, how you feel about money, and how you actually behave in terms of managing money? And here's what he told me. He said, Jim, I know, and my wife knows, he said, that I am really frugal. I'm very careful with my money because I watched how that impacted my father. He said, to a fault. This is not a good thing, he said. While it has a good side effect, being super frugal, pinching every penny, that has a good side effect because he was able to accumulate a good deal of wealth. He was very frugal. He lived well below his means. He followed the first law of personal finance: save more than you earn, spend less than you earn so that you can save more for what matters most. He exemplified that first law of personal finance, and his wife as well. And so you had two people married who had this same approach to life and money. Is we don't need to, have the newest, most expensive. They always did it the other way. He said, however, the drawback, the problem the affliction, he called it something like an affliction, a painful part of that, the way that that experience changed him. He said, it makes me not be generous enough to spend money to create really good, good memories and good experiences. He said, I live with a certain level of fear that prevents me from spending money in ways that could enrich my life and my family's life. And he said, that's not good. And that's something he recognized. And in our conversation, he was kind of processing that. It's not like he hadn't been processing that, but he was further processing that. And then not long after that, Hank shared with me that he made a decision. And this is kind of cool part of the story. I don't know that I tell this story in the video, but Hank told me that he made this decision to buy a piece of property on the Barren River Reservoir, which is it's a river in Bowling Green that goes through Bowling Green. It's a river that they set up, they, created a dam, kind of like if you go to Austin, the Colorado River, there's all these lakes that are part of the Colorado River chain, and that's what Barren River Reservoir is. It's this beautiful river lake, and Barren River Reservoir is this huge, beautiful lake. And he bought a piece of property on that lake. And he said he wanted to build a lake house. And he said his vision for that lake house for the entire family to use and to benefit from. And again, that's where I got to take my wife, my daughter, my son-in-law, my 2 grandkids, and my family from Michigan came down. And every year we go to the lake house and we have the best time together. But for me, the most special part of that journey every year goes back to this story and this conversation that I had with Uncle Hank about his first memories of money and why it was so important for him to push back on his own behavior with money, his own fear, if you will, his own apprehension about money. He always felt like he needed more, he needed to save more because he saw how his father lost everything in one experience. And so for me, every time I get to share time with my family at the lake house, it's a beautiful lake house. It's an amazing lake. We go out on the boat. We have the best time. You can watch the videos I make. I'm with my grandkids. It's just Caleb and Maddie had a great time on the tube this summer, and it was at the lake house. And it's Uncle Hank, who, again, no one, I can say I don't think anyone in my life, nobody in my life has the special place in my heart that Uncle Hank does. He was the kind of impactful influencer in my family and in my life that every family needs. The kind of guy you want to be like, the kind of guy I want to be like. And so that's what I want you to do, is go in your family and find that person that you look up to and you respect and you admire and you think, you know what, I want to be like you. And in the area especially of just maybe it's not money. It's up to you. You get to choose who you want to interview. But let me give you a couple ground rules about the interview. First of all, as I said, I want you to approach this with the utmost respect. And I want you to approach this interview with the understanding that the questions you ask could very well be emotional. And they could be emotional in a good way, but they can also be emotional in a not so good way, where sometimes you may ask these questions. I'll share the questions in the assignment. You ask the questions and you learn that there's some pain behind those questions. And usually that pain comes from shame, from regret. And so if that's the case, just be ready for that. Don't be afraid of it. Just be present with the person you're interviewing. And just know that that's possible. But you're asking this person to share with you their life wisdom, their experience about money, good and bad. And so just be aware that that's what you're doing, and do it carefully and thoughtfully, but do it boldly. because you could learn so much, and they may learn as well. And here's the other thing. Here's one of the things you may not realize going into this interview is that you are getting a gift from this person who's willing to share their experience. But you're also giving them an opportunity to experience the giving of a gift. And that's a pretty cool thing. Anytime anyone gets to share with someone else something that can really help them, especially when it really doesn't cost anything, it's a priceless gift that they get to give to you, and they get to experience the blessing of giving you this gift, then that's a pretty cool thing for you to give to them. So simply by selecting them, you're giving them honor and respect, and you're saying to them, I really care about what you have to share, and I want to ask you to share your experience, your strength, and your hope with me as I'm starting out this journey of figuring out how to manage life and money in a way that helps me be successful. So I wish you all the best in this assignment. And now I'm going to take my eyes off this plastic camera that I've been looking at for so long and talking nonstop. And I'm going to look at the look at the text and see if I missed any questions. So thank you for your comments. Yes, Tika says it can bring about anxiety and a sense of fear from not making enough to whatever expense is needed, but it also can be a motivation to work harder and or find ways to bring in other sources of income. You nailed it here, Tika. It's like two sides. There's the good and the bad. And really, though, what you're saying is, so you go on to say, perfect example is the impact of job loss from COVID-19. Many were stressed because they realized how they were spending their finances. That's a good observation. While others were okay because they ensured that their finances were already adjusted for any mishaps. And Tika, we call that in the financial planning world an emergency fund. And so you nailed it. COVID-19 was a perfect example. So many people lost their jobs, but many more people were faced with just challenges. And even today, with inflation being what it is, today the numbers came out. Again, it's September 13th, year of our Lord 2022. And today, this morning, 7:30 a.m., the inflation numbers came out, and they were up 0.1 of a point to 8.6% year over year. I believe it was 8.6. At any rate, that was a lot worse than they were expecting. And the point is, with inflation, we have 40-year high inflation. That's and it's partly because of COVID, because the government went totally ape on spending, and they gave away money to everybody. And last couple of weeks ago, they promised to forgive all the college student loans. And so what happens is when the government starts giving away money, it's money that they're printing. It's money that doesn't really exist until they speak it into existence, which means somebody's got to pay it, taxpayers got to pay it. But the point that creates inflation is the government just gives you money. They shut down the economy during COVID, so they had to just give everybody money. Everybody went and spent that money. And when you go and spend that money, it makes everything that's out there, there's less of it because there's more money chasing all this stuff. And everybody went and spent the money on stuff. And then the stuff became hard to get because everybody was buying it because everybody had money that the government gave them. And so the price of everything started going up. The availability of everything that everybody was buying started to go down. Supply chain issues, China, a whole bunch of issues, and that's caused inflation to go nuts. And that inflation is including fuel, gas, natural gas, but everything else as well, that has caused your dollars to be worth less. So as your dollars become worth less, that's inflation. That is also one of the things that makes it a really good idea to have a really solid emergency fund. So I'm hoping in the course of this semester that you will decide regardless of what your financial situation is. I know most of you are going to school and you're receiving benefits from loans or family or grants or scholarships, and you're basically not making a lot of money. But nonetheless, you still need an emergency fund. And so I hope this semester you make the choice to take whatever you've saved in your emergency fund, and if you have none, then commit to making a $500 emergency fund by the end of this semester. And if you've already got $500, commit to making it a $1,000 emergency fund. And if you're already working like I was in college and you have a family, make sure you commit to yourself to create an emergency fund that's like 6 months of income. I know that's a big ask, but that's really what you need to have the kind of financial stability that can take you through the kind of mishaps that we've seen in the last couple of years that we're seeing now. So that's great observation, Tika. I'm looking for other questions, comments, and I'm not seeing any. It's about 10:38. So let me just jump in and sorry about that. My iPad went to sleep. I'm going to just look at this assignment and see if there's anything else I need to. So you will see the questions in your assignment in Blackboard, and you'll get all of the learning content and the stories and money study group along with a quiz, and that will be part of your lesson. I just learned how to put, this is a Make Your Money Count is the book that has the stories in it. So for folks who want to support, I'm not making a commercial here, I'm just practicing my commercial. If you purchase this book, Make Your Money Count, I don't have a copy of it, but it's where the story of Hank is. And when you purchase this book, every dollar that we make in book sales and coaching and so all of that goes to Maddie and Caleb's college fund. So I'm really excited about that. I just did this recently, learning how to, I'm not a very good marketer, but I do have some books. They're great. They're really good books. I know they are because they got really great endorsements, and they're not like for sale in bookstores. You can't even get this book, the hardcover, at Amazon. The only way you can get it is to buy it through my website. So finally I got around to posting the link to actually buy it. But all of the stuff you're reading in Money Study Group, when I go over here to Money Study Group, this week's assignment especially, each of these, this content is all straight from Make Your Money Count. So Make Your Money Count is a huge part of this course, but folks who are not in the course, of course, if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook and you're like, I'd like to learn more, you don't have access to this in the course, and so you might want to buy the book, and you would be supporting Maddie and Caleb in their college fund. So that's my practice commercial. I am not trying to sell this book to you if you're a student, but it is one of the ways that I kind of pay some of the bills. And one of the bills I want to pay, I'd love to pay. I don't know who's paying for your college or how that's happening. Maybe you, like me, are paying for your own college, but I want to make sure that my two grandkids, Maddie and Caleb, get to go to college anywhere they want. But more than college, I'm into education. We're going to teach them. I want to teach them everything I can teach them. I'm 60 years old. My wife and I were talking this morning about going camping, and I don't know how to clean a catfish. Do you know how to clean a catfish? I want to teach Caleb how to catch catfish and clean them and eat them. I think that'll be fun. And I don't know how to clean a catfish. I know it's a pain in the butt and it's dirty, ugly, nasty, but I like to eat catfish. So anyway, I'll make videos and you can follow them at missionalmoney.com after you graduate, after you finish this course, if you want to keep up with the journey, because Caleb and Maddie are such a very important part of my life. I feel like teaching you what I'm teaching you about managing money in this course, personal finance, I want to teach that to my grandkids, but they're not quite ready for it yet. So anyway, that's me rambling again. So now it's 10:42 a.m. and I am going to end today's lecture a little early, if that's okay. But before I do that, I want to make sure I've answered every question you have. Um, I'm going to talk for a minute about your assignment last week and some of the assignments that are coming. Let me just jump over here. So, this week's assignment, Your First Financial Plan, is the title on the syllabus, because we're about to really jump into creating your first financial plan. So, knowing and understanding your first memories of money is a good way to kind of set the table for that. Next week, we're going to be doing the capstone credit crush setup. So the next 2 weeks after this week is about the interview. And it's about you doing some reflection around your first memory of money, your first memories of money. So that's really this week's assignment. It's not technical, and there's really nothing this week that is involved in your financial planning portal at Bayrock, Right Capital. But I will remind you, those of you who have already done it, thank you. Those of you who haven't, if you haven't done it, next week's assignment is going to really trip you up. You will not be able to get full points. I promise you, next week you will lose points if you haven't already signed up. And so I'm going in to update your financial plans today or tomorrow. And that's why you needed last week to make sure that you created your account at Bayrock, Right Capital. Remember, Right Capital is the company that I invested in. It's a financial planning software. It's online. It's very collaborative. It's part of this course. It's what I use in my business, Bayrock. That's why I refer to it as Bayrock, Right Capital, because it's branded with my company, because I invest in this technology company, but the name of the company is Right Capital. And you have to sign up and create an account so that you can create your financial plan using this premium financial planning portal. So if you haven't done that, you're late. And if you have done it, I'm sorry. I keep talking about it. Thank you for doing it. Okay, I see a question. It's a direct question, so maybe I shouldn't read it out loud. I just answered the question. Do I know when the other data cards will be added to the Bayrock Right Capital planning portal for your plan? And again, I'm going to do that either today or tomorrow or this weekend, but it will be before next week for sure. And so my portal is the same as it was 2 weeks ago. Yeah, that's right, because I generally I don't want to go in and have my team go in and have to update and then fish around for which plans got updated and which ones didn't. It's a lot easier for me to say, here's the deadline. And the deadline is yesterday for you to create sign up. So if you haven't done it, do it today, because if you do it after I update it, you're going to miss out. And even though you may have done it 10 minutes, you may sign up and set up your financial plan 10 minutes after I update. I'm not going back in to update your plan. You're going to have to send me an email to update your plan is the point. And you probably won't think about that until after you get some deductions on your assignments. So hope that's not too confusing. For those of you who have already signed up, thank you for doing that. For those of you who are wondering when you're going to see changes in your financial plan, that's coming very soon. So thank you for that question. And so, yeah, you should have already completed 6 cards. When you sign up, you have 6 cards. And we went over those a little bit last week. Let me see if I can, hold on. I'll see if I can go back to, I got to log in again. I'm just going to see if I can, it's not letting me log in. I'm not going to do it. So, you have 6 data cards. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go watch last week's Zoom meeting. I kind of unpacked those. So you have 6 data cards, like family, savings, expenses, net worth, I think is one. But you go through each of those and you complete those, you add some data like your name and birthday and family. And if you have a spouse, you would add your spouse. Then you go to the next data card, expenses, the next data card, goals, and the next data card. I can't remember what all 6 are, but at any rate, then after you complete those 6 data cards, if you scroll down to the bottom, it says complete. And a lot of times you miss that step. Hit complete. Once you fill in each of those 6 data cards and hit complete, I get an email that says you completed your initial plan setup. So if you haven't hit that little complete, go check and just hit the complete and you'll be good to go. I can still update your plan if you haven't hit the complete, but hit the complete if you think about it. If you have a minute, go in and do that today. Okay, so another question. Good morning. I just want to ask whether you can see my answer to the question early or not. Oh, Nan, yes, I can. I see. It will definitely change their perspective on life. Thank you for that. So this was the question about what do you think happens when somebody goes through a financial trauma like my Uncle Hank went through. And Nan, I'm sorry I didn't read this. It will definitely change their perspective on life, which is exactly what happened with Hank. And I think it helps them realize the importance of money and will most likely focus on managing and earning money as they grow up. And that's exactly what happened with my Uncle Hank. Thank you, Nan. That was exactly what happened with my Uncle Hank. And I'm hoping that when you do your interview with someone you select in your family, that you're going to discover that they experienced something similar, whether they made really good choices with money or not early on in their life. All of those experiences, good and bad, will teach them something. And that's what your objective is in this interview, is to learn from their wisdom, from their experience, so that you can take it and try to apply those lessons in your life, just like I was able to do with Hank. Like I haven't had the trauma that he had in that experience, but I learned that investing in things that are, saving money and just accumulating money is not the way to go. It's much better to use your money in a way that's wise, that can create better experiences for the people you love and for yourself, as opposed to just accumulating it. And I learned that from Hank. So that's what I'm hoping you can do too, is learn from that. By the way, I want to answer a question that nobody's asked. And if you send me an email and you ask this question, I'm probably not going to respond to it because I'm responding to it now. And that is, who can you interview? Can I interview my roommate? No. If you interview your roommate, you're going to get 0 points. Can I interview a friend? No. If you interview a friend, you're probably going to get 0 points. Can I interview my neighbor? No. It's a family member. Can I interview someone in someone else's family who I respect and admire? Okay, look, here's the deal. This is a parental interview. It's for you to interview one of your parents or an uncle or an aunt, like I did my Uncle Hank, someone in your clan and your family that you respect. And if that's not possible, you're going to have to explain why that's not possible. But to come back and say, I couldn't reach my whatever, and I interviewed my roommate, you're not going to get any points for that. I'm sorry. That's just kind of, the point is I want you to interview someone who is older than you, like a parent, could be an uncle or an aunt, but someone who's a generation older than you. That's the whole point of gaining the perspective and the insights and the experience of someone who's gone through life before you, not your roommate. So that's part of it. And typically families share certain dynamics, and so it's helpful if it's a parent, that's ideal, is for one of your parents who you respect or you saw struggle with money and you want to learn from them and appreciate them in the process. So please help me with that. Don't send me an email and ask if you can interview your roommate. That's not, I'm going to say no. So hopefully that helps. Okay, got some new. Can I interview my husband? Karen, that's a good, you can interview your husband, but that's not going to count for this assignment. I would definitely interview my husband. I mean, not that I would have a husband, because I'm definitely not that progressive, like to ever even think about having a husband. I'm a wife. My wife, I did interview my wife, and I would say go for it. Thanks, Karen, for understanding that. But it would be a good interview for you to interview your husband, but just not for the assignment. Okay, so you're welcome, Nan. Thank you. I'm going to count to 10 in my head. And if I don't see any more, okay, I did not see the complete button for Bayrock, but still did the 6 cards. Is that fine? Jessica, that's fine, but you might want to go back and just check to see. I could jump into your plan, but you should see a complete, if you've completed all 6, it's at the bottom right. Just check it one more time, but it's no big deal. If you completed all 6 cards, I'm going to go in and I'm going to update your plan. And I think when I update your plan, it automatically completes it. It's not a big deal, but if you're in the process, just know there's a complete button. And when you hit that complete, it sends me an email. So especially if you're setting it up today, it's a good idea to hit the complete button. So thank you, Jessica. All right. Going once, going twice. I'll be right back to the Zoom meeting. I'm going to jump over to my live stream. And for those of you who are watching on YouTube or Facebook, thank you for joining us. If it's not now, if you're not watching live, what was that? Okay. You don't. Okay, well then don't worry about it. If you don't see the complete button, maybe it auto-completed. I'm not sure. I'm going to check on that, but let's not get stuck. Don't worry about it. If you're not seeing a complete button, I see several students saying they're not seeing it. Possibly they changed it. Right Capital may have removed it. Maybe they auto-complete it now. I don't know. So forget I even said that. It should be good. You bet. You too. Thank you. Bye-bye. Okay, back to the live stream. I'm saying goodbye, signing off, and thanking you for watching. And if you're watching in the live stream that's ending right now, then thank you for being here. Please leave your comments, and throughout the video, I ask some questions, and I like to read those comments. And if you're watching later, like at 2 a.m. on Sunday morning, well, thank you for watching, and leave your comments. Okay, I'm going to finish the